Either you said or Mike Tobey said that you went out to lunch with him last week and talked about, I guess, the upcoming remainder of the season. Is that common? Do you go out for lunch with your players normally like that, or was that a little different?
Only if they treat. That's if they offer to pay, then I go out with them. No, I think Mike just asked if we get together for lunch. You know, we get together more in the off season, whether it's in breakfast or a lunch. I try to do that more this year. We'll get together and sit down because they're so busy. Their time, what they have in front of them, is a lot. But now we'll use. Yeah, no. Mike just said, "Hey, let's get together," and I always will. This year more, I've been watching film with guys individually. So we'll take times before or after a practice, and we'll have times then, and occasionally we do team things, and of course with all of our travel. But we just talked, and this senior class, it's a special group, and you've been through a lot of them, and you want to see them finish so well. And Mike just asked if we could get together, and we went to Zinburger, so I'll give a little plug for Zinburger. There you go. It's very good too. We just visited and just talked about things, and just the things we'd experienced. And again, these things are always made more of than they really are, but it was just about how to really finish well. And we reminisced a little bit and talked about that idea of trying to. I listened and talked, and we did a lot of things we exchanged, and basically came away with, after the fact, just let's focus on one thing to finish out, playing to the best of your abilities with a reckless abandon. I think that's what I'd said in the press room, and said that to Mike, and boy did he ever. He flew around. That doesn't mean you're always going to have 20 rebounds and do what he did, but he was so active, and he's shown that in flashes before and did a terrific job. So that was the extent of it.
London's turnovers have been kind of on the rise this year, I think, overall, particularly in the last few games. I think in this past game he had more turnovers than assists, which is pretty rare for him. Do you attribute his increased turnovers this year to anything in particular, and are you concerned, and did you address it with him at all?
Yeah, well, we always look at games, and he was at halftime, he said, I'm trying to force too much, or he said something, but we want London to be assertive. I think you have to understand, when you're trying to be more assertive, make some things happen, more aggressive, there is the opportunity, or you're going to bring into some of the turnovers. And I live with mistakes, I really do. It's just some of the uncharacteristic ones, or unforced errors. We talk about that a lot in tennis. Those are the ones that you get rid of, and we always try to eliminate. And against Louisville, he had a couple of those. I know he was really frustrated. He understands the game and has a great feel. He knows instantly, if he did that. But we always talk about valuing possessions and not giving ones away that we shouldn't. And I think he's been pretty rock solid this year. There were a couple in the Louisville game for him that I thought were very uncharacteristic. And, you address those, but he also made some plays too. So I think, yep.
He's done a little more this year, it seems like, being more of a shooter, and does that contribute maybe to the turnovers? Or?
No, I haven't statistically looked at it. I don't worry about him because he is rock solid with the ball. But when he does, you're always surprised when there's a turnover. Like I said, more of the unforced ones or the uncharacteristic ones. But he has the ball in his hands a lot. As far as being off the ball, our perimeter players all kind of are like point guards. They get into ball screens, they move without the ball, they have it in their hands a lot. So I don't think that would, if anything, that might, yeah, but I think it's just a matter of him looking to be aggressive, and a couple careless ones in the last game or two, but otherwise he's been pretty darn good with the ball in his hands. What is his assist-to-turnover ratio? I don't know it offhand, but I would think it's pretty solid. Even though it might not be his ideal, we're asking him to be more assertive, so that's going to change.
Tony, Malcolm said during preseason that he thought that the previous 2 years that maybe the team had not been as mentally tough as it needed to be during postseason. A, do you share that view? And B, just given your mid-season struggles this year, do you think this team is indeed mentally tougher, considering that it finished so strong?
I mean, every year is different, and I think that 2 years ago, the group that won the ACC regular season and conference tournament, they were mentally tough. played well, ran into a heck of a Michigan State team that won. That was a heck of a game. Last year was a little different, the way the season ended when in the interjection of Justin with the injuries. But I said it before, those last 2 years we lived off our success because we weren't put in the spot where we had to struggle. This year's team, has lost close ones and struggled, and there is good experience. So my hope is that we'll prepare as well as we can, and there'll be a level of toughness. That's what you hope. You hope the more experiences you have in different settings, you'll be as ready as possible for postseason play. So, that's always, you're always looking, where can we, when you have experienced players, where can we improve a little bit? And I think just by circumstances of, games that we dropped, suffered a little more, that hopefully we've gained from that, and we'll be as prepared as possible heading into postseason play. Played some really strong teams at the end of the year, and my hope is that there's good balance, and we'll find out as we pursue postseason now.
Back here, Coach. We talked before the North Carolina game about your schedule down the stretch, the last 6 or 7 games, about how that will benefit you guys as you get ready for the postseason. What do you think you learned about your team during that stretch as you get ready for the ACC tournament? Yeah,
I think it's they're resilient. We've showed balance at different times. There have been some games where, at Miami, Malcolm really carried us, and then we've had some games where we've seen other guys contribute. Even in the game against Louisville in the first half, we talked about it. London and Malcolm were not key contributors scoring-wise. Of course, they were key contributors in different ways, but to see other guys come forward, I think seeing different people step up. You saw what Mike Tobey did on the glass and just his efficiency and his game. So I think seeing those things and then realizing it's a fine line. I mean, that Clemson game could have gone either way. We were very fortunate, and we had to play 4 guards in that game. Got exposed in certain areas, and so I just think you realize, and that's maybe what playing this kind of schedule and this whole year is. You have to be right, and you need things to be clicking well to be successful. And if you just assume, well, because we won this many games or in years past, as I said, well, we always pulled it out, and we were 16-2 last year. Well, that didn't happen this year. Played quality ball at times, didn't play it, but I think that realization maybe has you're in reality a little more than a little bit more insulated, thinking it's all just going to fall into place.
Another Tobey question, and understanding that his story is still being written here in the postseason, what's been sort of your assessment of him this season based on what you expected of him early or prior to this season? I
think it's been up and down. I think he'd say that, I'd say that. But definitely there have been some ups and some stretches, and then there's been times whether it's foul trouble or things haven't gone well. But that's what I appreciate about Mike, because he's been faithful. He's just worked. He's battled. Like every player's had to deal with discouragement. Sure, at times he's felt he's had a short leash from me, a lot of different things. But he's really – you guys know, you cover us. We have good young men. He's a good young man. He's kind-hearted. He cares, and I said it after the game, when I see, of course, collective team success, it's great, but when I see an individual that has had ups and downs touch that and see that, that makes me as happy as anything, and I saw that in him. You could see it in his face, so those are the good things about it. But Mike's just showed up, he's worked, and I think he knows that he has that in him and can help us, and that's what he's about. He wants to have the best finish to his year, and again, it really clicked on Saturday.
Was there a part of you when you saw those numbers and saw that performance on Saturday, even privately, that said, well, where did that come from?
No, I mean, did I expect he was going to have 20 rebounds? Yeah, I didn't realize that even when I looked at the stat sheet. And, I've seen him, as I said, he's given us good lifts. He's given us nice moves. He's bothered shots with his size. He's active. He's a good offensive rebound. We've seen his touch, all those things. So I've seen those. It's just hard to put those together. And we actually even talked about this. The game has changed in the last 2 or 3 years, 4 years. When you look around, and we were joking, he said, yeah, the Golden State Warriors, man, god dang it, they've ruined me. We were kind of laughing, just joking, like. the game now for the 7-footer, there aren't as many of those kinds of teams. It's just changing. It's a 4 out, sometimes 5 out. So if you're going to be a big guy in this game, you really have to be, you know, different and better and find your niche, because it's a challenge. So I think all those things sort of played into it. But I've seen him have those stretches, and it's just, again, being consistent. And that's why, you know, I told Mike in our time, I said, forget about picking up a foul, forget about a mistake, just focus on just playing with a reckless abandon. That when he's flying around and helping us, don't worry about looking over your shoulder if I'm going to take you out or put you in. I think when he's flying around and playing that way, that helps us the most, and I think it helps him. And that's something that, you know, players continue to evolve and understand and learn.
Tony, on Saturday you talked a lot about how you told the seniors to look around and see what they've helped create. What about the program and this group of seniors makes you kind of feel those feelings this year and with this group? And even though you're not the #1 seed, you've beat the #1 seed going to the tournament. Does it feel like you have a target on your back a little bit more than it did in the other years? Or
well, I said that after the game, look around, not before, just so we clarify. Not before. We don't do that. That's right. I mean, all the groups that have been before are special. And you go back to Akil and Joe and Darian and Justin, all I can go back. But it was just a moment with them that I said, you know, if we win this game, I want them, because there's 4 of them. There's a big group of them. And, you know, Malcolm, we talked about it, he's touched, since I've been here, he spans every player. I go back to, you know, Mike Scott, Asan, all those guys. Malcolm's been part of that team from the guys transferred to just because he sat out. And that's unique, just that part of it and all what this group has been through. And I just thought, boy, what a way after the game to come to the center circle. And it was really more be thankful for what's happened. And then for me to say I'm grateful because, again, I mentioned they really embodied what I've hoped that they would in terms of our pillars and just how they've represented themselves, and say, look what's kind of happened. Appreciate that moment, because it was special to me. I'll never forget that, to be able to do that with them. We've had so many great moments. So it was just one of those things, kind of was moved by the moment and thought this will be special to do this with them in that setting. As far as going into the conference tournament, you just looked at the way the conference was, how close it was, how many teams have fought, and how tight every game was. You're going to have to go and play well. As far as a target on our back, I think it's just you're going to have to play well. You're in postseason now. I think all that stuff sort of washes away, and it's just prepare well. Who's playing the best basketball can survive, and that's the mindset of being as ready as we can.
Because of the way the game is changing, has your recruiting of bigs in particular changed? Are you more hesitant now to take a guy who is a true post player, but only a true post player than maybe you would have been when you got into this?
I think you look at your forwards, how you're going to play. You know, Mike, interestingly, you know, he's got skill. He can step out. He can do things. So, but yeah, you have to think the mobility factor that you're looking at teams playing with mobile 5s and 4s, ball screen defense. You know, we've talked about that. We've always been pretty mindful of that. And so I think you do look at that, but the game has changed. I mean, it used to be only the perimeter guys would occasionally shoot 3s. Well, now the perimeter guys will shoot 3s from NBA range, and now the 4s will shoot 3s and sometimes the 5s, and a lot of teams are playing in the space. So I think you always look at that, you know, your mobility, your style, your system, and then of course you adjust with players that you have, but I think it's something that you're always mindful of how you want to play.
If you should play Clemson and see Blossom game again, do you think you've gleaned enough to make kind of like the third time a charm in figuring out what makes him so tough? And then also just on the flip side, if you could talk about Georgia Tech a little bit and the things that they hit a lot of 3s in that first meeting against you, I remember.
I mean, Blossom Game's a heck of a player. He can shoot the 3. He's athletic and drive. We tried a lot of different things on him, and some were successful. Sometimes Malcolm guarded him, sometimes Mariel, it was Isaiah, Evan, Anthony. You know, you just, when you go against players that good and they have other guys, you got to try to make them earn, and that's always what we look at. And we've had different experiences against them, so if we play them, we know how fortunate we're to beat them, how tight of a game that is, how physical they are, well coached. I have the utmost respect for them. Georgia Tech really is playing good basketball. They've won, I don't know, Eric, you can tell me, I think 5 of their they've won a few, and they've been in games down the stretch. And I think they're a different team than when we played them. And my hope is that obviously we're a different team as well. Adam Smith's going nuts shooting the ball. And then Georgia's Hunt is playing terrific basketball. They have two power players inside, physical team that's playing well, and happy for Coach Gregory because he's done a good job. But that's this league. You look at this league, which is different, middle of the pack. There's not much separation. It's just you look at what Virginia Tech's done. You look at it, I mean, 2 teams had poor records, but everybody else was right in there, and even Wake and BC have played some of our teams in the upper echelon of our league tight. So it's about, again, who's playing well, who's prepared, and being as sharp as you can. And I wouldn't know how to pick that game. That's a hard-fought game. They actually had a really close, it was an overtime game, I think, second to last game of the year, Georgia Tech and Clemson at Georgia Tech.
We know Doug voted for Gregory over you for Coach of the Year.
Probably well-deserved, yeah. So he's what's that? They've won 5 of 6, so.
Tony, statistically, you've been much better defensively in the second half of the conference season as opposed to the first, which is kind of counterintuitive given how backloaded the schedule was. Was there an X and O component to your improvement? Was it just simply player development? To what do you attribute it?
Probably struggle, getting our ears pinned back or getting beat and realizing you can say it, you can do it, but when you're forced, like, this is our lifeline, this is how we compete, and it hasn't, if we're not really good in that area, that fine line and being just the best we can be, we're probably not going to be successful. And that reality set in. And so I thought guys, we continued to work at it, and I think guys fully gave themselves. I think they were, but they went to another level, and I think we did become better collectively. Just seemed like we weren't as stretched at times, and just collectively played better. Different guys, I think, improved. You saw Isaiah give us a lift, but Marielle and Devin and those guys, they got more experience, and they were better in the system as well. So even Evan, his smart. So I think some of the things came together, and I just thought we became a better team defense. We just like on offense, talk about you share the ball, you do that. Well, I thought we were more, I used the word, we were tied a little tighter, more connected, and had that collective mindset better, whereas early on, I felt like we were at times not as good collectively.
Get time for a couple more. Doug.
You've been around long enough to know some of the history of the program. I don't remember a guy cleaning up in the postseason awards like Malcolm did yesterday. Just what did you feel like for him, and what jumped out at you when the all-conference teams were announced?
Great league, great talent. To receive those awards, well deserved. I mean. He came back this senior year, and it helped him, it helped us, and he's gotten to experience. I remember we talked about, I think you can have it all. You can get your masters, you can be part of a good team, and we're going to try to play our best head into postseason, and you can have some great individual opportunities. And when to receive that award of Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, and never been done in the history of the league or in the 10 years that the defensive, was that right? So in the defensive award's been going 3-time first-time all-conference. I know since Ralph Sampson, what a legacy he'll leave behind, and that's worthy to be celebrated at the right time. And I know Malcolm, he'll keep steady, and he doesn't have to prove himself to anybody, but just playing well and continue to do it. But he's just been faithful, like I talked about Toby. He's been so faithful, and he's gotten better. That's what I liked most about this, is he's improved. You don't usually see a guy improve in his last year as much as Malcolm did, but he's gotten more efficient. I've seen him certainly with his leadership, and he's done some nice things, and to be recognized like he was in this kind of league with this kind of talent, that'll be something I'm sure that will stand the test of time for sure.
Tony, you set up your tough non-conference schedule, and I was wondering, did you get everything out of that you hoped you would, and is that something that you'll continue to do in the future, or does it depend on what kind of team you have coming back?
Yeah, I think next year we have a lot of those are return games, some of those teams. So yeah, I think it can go one way or the other when you play a schedule like that, but we always try to test ourselves, and I think we improved. We had experience different team next year, but we're playing it. So I think we did get a lot out of it, and I think it showed us some things, being in a tough setting at George Washington, second game of the year, playing in a neutral site against, you know, different kinds of systems, West Virginia's press, the talent of Villanova and their four guard. I can go on and on down the list. There were some good games that I think, and we were fortunate to be successful, but yeah, they certainly helped us. And, you know, then you look at how we started the conference, we struggled, so you guess you could make the case maybe you weren't as prepared, but I think it was good, and I think we'll continue to try to play absolutely a high-level schedule. A lot of it has to do with just making it work, but these games are kind of set in their series there that I think players want to play against, and that's with this group especially. We talked about we had a couple openings, and it's like we have these opportunities, and our seniors, our fourth-year, fifth-year guys are like, let's play the best we can find.
Whenever we're talking to Malcolm at away games, a lot of the times opposing coaches come up to him and just chat. Is he kind of a coach's player? I guess, I mean, this seems like a silly question because it's Malcolm, but what do you think other coaches see in him as a person that make them really, I guess, admire him, respect him, something like that? Yeah,
I just think how steady he is. I mean, his play speaks volumes. He's, you know, you just don't see that many two-way players, I guess you'd say, to use it in football. You know, there's not many, but he's an offensive, defensive guy. And when you see a guy that's that complete, that's steady and has helped his team win, a winner in how he's done it and with his kind of character, I think that coaches respect that and admire that. And he's, you know, like I said, he's been around so long that they probably know him pretty well, right? There's many times they've, you know, shook hands with him and talked to him.
Can you just answer a question from Mike Barber, who's not here? He wants to know if there's what value having a veteran team at the ACC tournament on a neutral floor plays into it for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think experience is so important, having been in this setting and playing. And again, it comes down to who's playing well. At this point, even your young guys have experience, but as we've talked about, these seniors have all played, and now four of these, this will be their fourth ACC tournament, been in a lot of games, and that's valuable. And again, knowing the two, whoever will play, Clemson or Georgia Tech, beat by one and very tight games with the other one. So understanding the reality of you got to be ready to go. So I think it's positive.